All right. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Sales Pipeline Radio. I'm your host, Matt Heinz. Very excited to be here as the weather gets a little colder. It is raining like crazy in Seattle, shocker. But we're inside, we're warm, we're dry, and excited to have you here again. If you're watching live on LinkedIn or on YouTube, thank you very much for checking us out in the middle of your workday, in the middle of your work week. Feel free to chime in with your own comments on today's topic and with today's featured guest. Ask questions, make comments, maybe make you part of the show as well. But thank you very much for watching. If you're watching on demand or listening via the podcast, thanks so much for subscribing. Thanks so much for downloading. If you like what you hear today, we cover B2B sales and marketing best practices on a regular basis. And there's over 300 episodes now available on demand at salespipelineradio.com. Very excited to have with us today influencer, author, evangelist, Julie Hansen joining us today to talk a little bit about how we continue to evolve sales and marketing in a virtual world. Julie, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Matt. So great to be here with you.
Well, let's start with, for those of you that may not know you or be familiar with your work, maybe just start with sort of introduction of you and some of the things that you've been writing and thinking about lately and sort of what you've been working on lately.
Sure. Well, lately it's certainly been all about virtual, as it has for many people, whether they planned on it or not, right? But I was or have been a sales trainer, sales consultant for many years and teaching presentation skills. And I taught virtual presentation skills, but there were so few people in those classes that would use their video, right? They'd all go, "Oh no, I have tape over my video, so I don't by chance even get on video."
Right.
And certainly that has all changed. So when the pandemic hit, I had also worked as an actor. I was in sales a long time and I worked as an actor and took a few years off to do that in New York. And I realized that, all these people are going on camera and they've never had the benefit of understanding how to adapt to speaking on the camera because it's a highly unnatural act, as everyone has found out. And so I saw everyone struggling with that, and I was like, "Gosh, I had the benefit of having on-camera training classes as an actor, and that was the only way I ever got a part on TV or film, or I'd still be banging on the doors." So I put together some videos to help people in sales, specific for business and sales, to communicate more effectively on camera, and developed the Selling on Video Masterclass. And then I worked with, hundreds and hundreds of salespeople, coaching them on that over the past 2 years. And out of that came this idea of the book, which is called Look Me in the Eye, Using Video to Build Relationships. Out of that process, I heard so many questions that I thought, there's just so many things that we don't know intuitively. So I wrote the book to address a lot of the things that sellers were asking, like, well, what if my customer doesn't have their camera on? Well, what if I have two screens? Well, why are people so passive on video? And why is this so uncomfortable? So it's really a guidebook to help salespeople through that.
I have so many questions. We're definitely not going to have enough time today. If for those of you that want to learn more about Julie, definitely encourage you to go to actingforsales.com. I love just the perspective of thinking about this a little bit as a performance, right? I mean, you want to be authentic in selling. You want to come across as a real sort of authentic person, but talk about sort of selling as a performance and talk about how important it is in a virtual environment like this. For those of you that are just watching, I mean, it's a miracle that we get to see each other and interact with each other in real time with video, but this isn't the same as being in person. Like, you don't see as much body language. It's very difficult. I feel like I'm looking you in the eye, but I'm not, because I'm looking at the screen here and I'm not looking at. It's very unnatural to look here all the time. Absolutely. And I've got notes and other stuff I want to look at. And if I'm looking at them, you feel like I'm not talking to you. It's very complicated. Like, how do you navigate that as a seller?
Yeah, it's way complicated. And then you're supposed to be present and in the moment and listening and picking up cues. It's like, it really is, you've got a one-person show going on here, that you're the director, you're the lighting technician, you're the makeup artist,
right?
You're the performer. So you have to manage all these skills. And I guess in terms of how does this, relate to acting, and I learned as a performer, like you said, the best acting is using parts of yourself. It's not being someone you're not. It's being as authentic as you can in some unnatural circumstances, right?
Right.
How would I react in this circumstance? And trying to find that true connection to express yourself. Uh, and in sales, it's really no different. It's, we're playing a role, right? We're in our sales role and we're still ourselves, but we're different when we're a partner or a soccer coach or a yoga instructor, right? We just use different parts of ourselves. So it's very similar. It's just as an actor, you learn how to step into those roles a little more consciously, access those best parts of yourself. And when we're in front of a camera, what's interesting is, we're in a new medium, and there's a lot of people that want to deny that and go, well, I'm just going to do what I always do. And it's like, well, okay, but your results may not be as anticipated,
Yeah.
because we have honed our face-to-face skills for our entire life. And suddenly this requires new skills. And we've sort of thrown people in front of a camera, given a bunch of tools and technology, and like, okay, now connect with people and really, deliver that same energy and passion about what you sell with all these things going on. And oh, by the way, not knowing how to talk to a camera without, looking distracted or inattentive or, unconfident. So it's a lot. Oftentimes people say, well, I don't want to adapt. Why do I have to adapt to this? It's like, we adapt when we're in person all the time. Like if you were in person and you were presenting, you learn to sort of position yourself so they can see the screen behind you, right? Or you adjust your energy for the room. It's really not, it's different in that the techniques are different, but this
Right.
idea of we're adapting because it's all about the customer's experience,
Yeah.
right?
Well, when you think about what that means in terms of differentiating yourself, right? I mean, I think, you've got this different virtual medium. You've got prospects that may be going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting that can get a little monotonous and get tiring. What are you doing in the way you come across? What are you doing in your presentation, in your body language, how well you smile, and also just how you present yourself that helps you be someone that is just enjoyable in that environment as well. And that can be hard to do. I am very curious though, and just explicitly, because I'm personally very bad at this. Like I'm trained to look someone in the eye, so I'm looking at you as I'm talking to you. And I'm assuming that people that do like talk shows on TV for a living, that do remote, they're so used to just staring at the camera and pretending they're looking at you in the eye. It is a very difficult thing to do. Just
It's a
purely
skill. Yeah.
tactically, is this just something that so is like on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it that I look here as if I'm
Mhm.
looking at you versus looking down at you here? How important is that? And B, what are some tactics to help people is it just practice? Is it just doing it often? Like
Um,
what's the best way to do
yeah.
it?
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it by now, right?
Right.
It's clearly not. How many times have you heard, well, you should look at the camera? It's like, oh, thank you. That's so helpful, right? That's why I wrote a book about it. It's not, you told me that as an actor. That didn't help me. So, there are tactics to do that. And certainly it's practice, but, practicing in a certain way and making
Yeah.
it, easier to adjust to. But the reason it's important is, if, Matt, you were telling me your biggest problem that you're having today and you were pouring your heart out to me and I was looking down, might you feel that I'm perhaps distracted or uninterested or checking my phone? I mean, if we did that in person, the other person would be like, hey, do you mind?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is the equivalent of what we're doing virtually all the time. Whether we like it or not, the
Mhm.
reality is, if we're not looking at the camera, the other person doesn't feel like you're paying attention to them, you're listening
Right.
to them, you're interested.
Right.
Eye contact is related to, honesty and telling the truth and confidence. It helps you build a relationship faster. So there's all these great qualities about making direct eye contact that we're not taking advantage of. And it's already more difficult to build relationships on video.
Right.
Harvard Business Review did a study on that, which is really not surprising, right? And we're just tying our hands down by not understanding how we come across on camera, how our customer perceives us, what the camera does to our behavior. and
Mhm.
how we need to adapt so that our customer has an experience where, like you said, they go, oh, wow, that was a great call I had with Matt. I just felt energized. I'm excited about the next call. Most calls are nothing like that.
Yeah. Talking today on Sales Pipeline Radio with Julie Hansen, a sales expert who's written extensively on how to sell and how to present yourself in the virtual world. Encourage everyone, actingforsales.com, juliehansen.live. Tons of great content, a lot of good free stuff up there in terms of best practices. You've also got a bunch of some great workshops. You've got a selling on video masterclass that I highly recommend people check out as well. And I think that there are things that engage us in the real world. That work in virtual as well. Like, I think if we're not on video, it's easy to get distracted and get away with it, right? And you may be able to fake your way through a conversation by doing that, but then you're not really paying attention. You're not gathering that information. By you looking me in the eye, even though you're looking at camera right now, by me thinking you're looking me in the eye, I have tens of thousands of years of like hardwired brain to think like you're looking at me, you're going to recognize whether I'm paying attention or not. So I am
Yeah.
therefore going to more likely pay attention to you.
We
Right? I
feel
mean,
a
how
little
often
more
are you in a
accountable.
yeah,
Yes.
how often are you in a meeting or even at a conference when someone on stage, they look like they're looking at you? And how often do you just sort of naturally just sort of like you look them back, now you're really paying attention. Now you're nodding your head or sort of reacting
Right.
to what they're saying. They're not looking at you directly if they're on stage and there's thousands of people out there, but that connection matters, right? And so I think there probably is a very direct correlation between that direct connection you have and the amount of the content they consume and actually retain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, to your point, it's like, even if you have 20 people on your call, which you can't possibly manage to look at, even if you tried on a Zoom and catch body language and read these cues, you won't be able to do it.
Right.
And connect. But what we can remember, and I teach a technique on the book to set your screen up so that you can use your peripheral vision to still look at the camera and catch some major changes in body language. Like if you have it set up right and you're looking at your camera, for instance, I can see that Matt just nodded, right? I can see him smiling. I can see these things. And so I know if I continually see some movement, I maybe need to check on that. I need to do a micro check-in, but I don't constantly need to do this, the up and down, which, our eye contact sends so much information to people. That tells me you're not certain, you're maybe hiding something. So we have to be very intentional about, where we're looking and what we're doing. But even if we have that many people on the call, the thing is, video is a very personal medium. So everyone is having their own individual experience with you. So if I'm looking at the camera, everybody feels like I'm talking to them. And people, salespeople don't use this knowledge enough. One of the things you can do with that power is, we all complain about, oh, people are so passive on video, right? Customers, especially if you get a number of people on a call. And that's true. That is people go into kind of receiving mode when they're in front of a screen, especially if they think it's a pitch or a presentation, right? They're not there to engage.
Right.
And so we have to break that pattern. But also, if you don't look at the camera when you ask a question, I'm not going to feel compelled to answer it. Right. I mean, the simplest way to improve people's interaction is to look at the camera, ask the question, and hold it there. Don't you feel like the pressure is building, as I say?
Yeah.
So how does that sound, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and if you've done that and someone's paying attention, they feel like they need to engage with you. You've done that, they may not be paying attention. It's a quick way to sort of get them back, sort of engage with you in a more direct way.
Right.
Love it. Well, we just got a couple more minutes with Julie Hansen today. Definitely make sure you check out her book, Look Me in the Eye, brand new book. You can find on Amazon and where great books are sold. Want to make sure we also recognize our sponsor, Sendoso. Pretty relevant, I think, Julie, to this conversation today about just the way that we are selling in a very hybrid workplace. We've got digital saturation in a lot of channels. We've got hybrid opportunities, but like those human connections we're talking about, looking someone in the eye, connecting with someone on a personal level still makes a huge difference. And whether you do that physical, hybrid, virtual, still super important. I love what Sendoso has done to sort of help evangelize these ideas. They recently did their Connected conference. tons of best practices, excuse me, lots of customers that are doing virtual hybrid work, connecting at a human level. Definitely encourage everyone, even though the conference is past, you can't attend it live. It's all available on demand, sendoso.com/connected-2021. Some really great content, some great on-demand stuff there that I think, can allow you to take some of what we're talking about here with Julie on in terms of sort of skills in selling and bring that to life throughout your entire go-to-market strategy. So really want to thank Sendoso for engaging with us and participating as a sponsor of Sales Pipeline Radio. Last question I want to ask for you, I think, is around sort of preparation for selling. And I think about, getting into a sales environment where, you've got your deck and you got your messages you're trying to use. And I think there's an analogy there for actors. Like if you give someone a script and say like, go up and perform, if they don't know the words, they're focused on the script versus the performance. If you know your content well, if you know what you're trying to say, if you have already done some practice envisioning where you want this to go, you're gonna be more comfortable with the content, more natural in presenting it, and be able to focus more on the performance. How close is that analogy in terms of helping people?
No, that is spot on. Like, you can't even really rehearse effectively as an actor until you're off book or off script, right?
Yeah.
Because you're too busy thinking about what's the next line, and you're not establishing those connections like you're trying to do in a scene. And the same thing is true in sales. Like if you are constantly worried about what's the next slide, how am I going to introduce it? Like I say, why write copy in your head on the spot? Like that's the hardest thing to do, right? And it doesn't mean you have to memorize the whole thing. We don't have a writer there in the room going, she messed up that line, right? But it gives you confidence, and there's certain things that can, give you more confidence, which is always know your first line, right? Because that's as a performer, what you find is, and a presenter, and I'm sure you've perhaps felt this, like that first minute, those first few seconds are the most nerve-wracking. And especially virtually where you've got all these different things to manage. So you got to have that first line down so that once you get that out, then muscle memory sort of kicks in and you go. But also in preparation in terms of you got to be on. You got to be on before you hit, join meeting. What I learned as an actor is actors don't wait until the curtain goes up or the camera goes on to be in character, to be at the right energy level, to be, in the moment. And I see a lot of salespeople sort of, taking a couple minutes to really get their stride, to hit their sweet spot. And we don't have that kind of attention span anymore, right? Especially if you're sending a video to someone, it's like delete. You don't know, you didn't grab my attention, right? You weren't looking at me. It wasn't compelling. It was wooden. So many reasons to hit delete. So
and I
getting
think
in that place is important.
The delete button is happening faster and faster with people as well as our attention spans go down. So super important advice. Well, listen, I don't want to give everything away. We need people to sort of buy some workshops and books here. But Julie, thank you for being so generous with your time and ideas today. For those that you want to learn more, definitely check out juliehansen.live. You can get a copy of the book, Look Me in the Eye, at Amazon, as well as directly on the site. Acting for Sales. Go to acting4 sales on Twitter. You're going to see a lot of great Julie's insights and be able to follow her as well. And Julie, thanks so much for being generous with your time and joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much, Matt. It was a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching live. For those of you listening, thanks so much again for downloading and subscribing. If you want to share this conversation with some of your sales leaders, other people in your go-to-market team, you can find this on demand shortly at salespipelineradio.com. With that, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on another episode of Sales Pipeline Radio. Bye-bye.